in the hope that some of you will carry these experiments further and come up with something new.
More and more often these days, an interesting story is being presented to men and women in homes and offices all over America.
Images. Millions of images. That's what I eat. The cyclotron processes image. It's the microfilm principle. Smaller and smaller, more and more images in less space. Pounded down on a cyclotron, a crystal image meal. Thing police keep all boardroom reports, and we are not allowed to proffer the disaster accounts. Wind hand caught in the door. Explosive, bio-advanced men out of space to employ electrician in gasoline crack of history. Fast to the gallant heroes. I'm you on tracks, Mr. Bradley, Mr. Martin. Couldn't reach flesh in his switch and 0 time to the 6th track. Old showman packing our ermines, you might say. Sliding between light and shadow, muttering in the dogs of unfamiliar score. Across the wounded galaxies we intersect, poison of dead sun in your brain, slowly fading. Migrants of ape in gasoline track of history. Explosive, bio-advance, out of space to neon. Now I got all the images of sex acts and torture ever took place anywhere. I got orgasms, I got screams. I got all the images any hit or whatever shit out. I got millions and millions and millions of images of me. They've distracted you with a war film and given false information as usual. You're inexperienced, of course. Totally green troops in the area. However, your unauthorized action will enable us to cut some corners. Come along now and we will get the real facts.
No barbaric chieftain of the warlike tribes. This state's clever, suave, wild.
Now these experiments started not on tape recorders, but on paper. In 1959, Brion Gysin said that writing is 50 years behind painting, and applied the montage technique to words on a page. And this technique had already been used in painting at that time for 50 years. It was in fact kind of old hat in painting. Brion copied out phrases from newspapers and magazines, then took his scissors and cut these selections into pieces and rearranged the fragments at random. And these cut-up experiments appeared in Minutes to Go in 1959. When you experiment with cut-ups over a period of time, you find that some of the cut-ups and rearranged text seem to refer to future events. I cut up an article written by John Paul Getty and got, "It's a bad thing to sue your own father." This was a rearrangement and wasn't in the original text. And a year later, one of his sons did sue him. I mean, it's just purely extraneous information. It meant nothing to me. I had nothing to gain on either side. We had no explanation for this at the time. It just suggesting the press, when you cut into the present, the future leaks out. But we simply accepted it and continued the experiments. The next step was cut-ups on the tape recorder, and Brion was the first to take this obvious step. Now, the first tape recorder cut-ups were a simple extension of cut-ups on paper. There are many ways of doing these, but here's one way. You record, say, 10 minutes on the recorder. Then you spin the reel backwards or forwards, just like that, without recording. Stop at random and cut in a phrase. Now, of course, when you cut in that phrase, you've wiped out what's ever there, and you have a new juxtaposition. Now, how random is random? We know so much that we don't consciously know that perhaps the cut-in was not random. The operator, on some level, knew just where he was cutting in. As you know, on some level, exactly where you were and what you were doing 10 years ago at this particular time. But you couldn't, most of you couldn't, there are a few freaks who can, make that knowledge consciously available. And the same way, while you're doing the tape, on some level, you know just exactly where your words are. So cut-ups put you in touch with what you know and do not know that you know. Now, of course, this procedure on the tape recorder produces new words by altered juxtaposition, just as new words are produced by cut-ups on paper. Well, we went on to exploit the potentials of the tape recorder. Cut up, cut, slow down,
speed up.
Another inch of the tape, that means work it back and forth, back and forth across the tape head. Play several tracks at once. Now here are some tapes. Again, the image snapped back, fading now and flickering like an old film. Sure, but you see now why we had to laugh till we pissed watching those dumb hicks playing around with photo montage, like charging a regiment of tanks with a defective slingshot.
Already stated, the Yankee tenants all other loan, it's up to other loan, sure that other loan, where, other loan, to express them.
Uranian Willie, the heavy metal kid, also known as Willie the Rat, he wised up the marks. This is war to extermination. Fight cell by cell through bodies and mind screens of the earth. Souls rotten from the orgasm drug, flesh shuddering from the ovens. Prisoners of the earth, come out. Storm the studio. Burnt metal smell of interplanetary war in the raw noon streets, swept by screaming glass blizzards of enemy flak. Shift linguals, free doorways, cut word lines, photo falling, word falling, breakthrough in gray room. Towers, open fire. Partisans of all nations, open fire.
tilt, blast, pound, stab, strap, kill. Pilot K9, you are cut off. Back before the whole fucking shithouse goes up. Return to base immediately. Ride music beam back to base. Stay out of that time flak. All pilots, ride panpipes back to base. The technician mixed a bicarbonate of soda, surveying the havoc on his view screen. It was impossible to estimate the damage. Anything put out up till now is like pulling a figure out of the air. Enemy installations shattered, personnel decimated, board books taken. Electric waves of resistance sweeping through mind screens of the Earth. The message of total resistance on shortwave of the world. This is war to extermination. Shift linguals, cut word lines, vibrate tourists, free doorways. Photo falling, word falling. Breakthrough in gray room, calling partisans of all nations. Towers, open fire. DS stood there translucent silver, sending a solid blast of inflexible authority. All right, we'll talk. The cyclotron processes image. It's the microfilm principle. Smaller and smaller, more and more images in less space.
Boys, they've already stated that the Yankee tenant all but it's up to you to no. I'm sure that world.
It's the eyewash river, but it will be no eyewash when the bombers come.
Gratitude of
Dwarf's eyes sputtered blue sparks, a reek of burning flesh billowed through the room. I still mushroom planet wide open for jolly. Any hick poet shit out pleasures.
No barbaric chieftain of the warlike tribes. He's clever, suave.
Come closer and see my pictures. Show you something interesting. Come closer and watch them flop around in soiled linen. The garden boys, both of us, good as we used to be. Sweet pictures start coming in the hang the man knees up the chin. You know, Beauty Bear and Still Is Good. Ever try his crotch when the egg cracks? I still mushroom planet wide open for jolly. Any hick poet shit out pleasures. Come closer and see my pictures. Now I got all the images in backward time. I got screams.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you... For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with America in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the sea of tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this Earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
What I do is put the blazing photo from Hiroshima and Nagasaki under my cyclotron and shade the heat needle in with the mescal. Indetectable.
No barbaric chieftain of the warlike tribes. He's clever, suave, and wise, playing his country's game against the great European power and modern war machine. Religion inspires Ethiopia in its hour of peril. Great hosts throng for a ceremony of prayer.
Apomorphine is no word and no image. It is, of course, misleading to speak of a silent virus or an apomorphine virus, since apomorphine is antivirus. The apomorphine preparations must be raised in a culture containing sublethal quantities of pain and pleasure cyclotron concentrates. Subvirus stimulates antivirus special group. But immunity has been established in the surviving preparations, and many will not survive. We have the formula necessary to defeat virus powers. It is simply a question of putting through an inoculation program in the very limited time that remains. Word begets image, and image is virus. Poetry, space. What good is all that to me? If I don't get the image fix, I'm in the uppings, you understand? All the pain and hate images come loose. You understand that, you dumb hick? I'm finished, but your eyes still pop out. Naked candy of adolescent image, Panama.
Delusions of grandeur make you feel so spectacular. Your dreams deceive
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing that marvelous performing horse, Pansy. Come here, Pansy, and let the people look at you. Don't be bashful. Pansy, do you want to grow up to be a nitwit? Now, where were we? You're supposed to be a beautiful horse. And look at the position of your legs. Straighten up.
Johnny the Ethiopian is going to war and saying goodbye. The fever of war is burning in Harar. Boys play with guns. The women offer to fight beside their men. No barbaric chieftain of the warlike tribes. He's clever, suave, wise.
Yes, when the going gets really tough, they call in the old doctor to quiet the marks. And he just raises his old blue hands and brings them down slow, touching all the marks right where they live, and the marks are quiet. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, you can only call the old doctor once. So be sure when you call him, this is really it. Because if you call the doctor twice, he quiets you. The old doctor reeled out onto the platform. Then he heard the screaming marks.
and he steadied himself, and he drew all of it into him, and he stood up very straight and calm and gray as a wise old rat, and lifted his old blue hand shiny over the dirt, and he brought them down slow in the setting sun. And all the marks just stood there quiet. His cold old hands on their wrists and ankles, hands cold and blue as liquid air on wrist and ankle, just frozen there in a heavy blue mist of vaporized banknotes. So there they stand like dummies. They are dummies. And you let your heavy, cold, blue hands fall through them, clunk, as word dust falls from demagnetized patterns, your spirals holding wrist and ankle where we came in. Now, some wise characters think they can call the old doctor twice. You see, son, in this business, you always have to find an angle. If a man makes a certain amount of money by certain means, he will go on making more money by the same means, and so forth. Human activities are drearily predictable. It should now be obvious that what you call a reality is a function of these precisely predictable because pre-recorded human activities. Now, what could louse up a pre-recorded biologic film? Obviously, random factors. That is, someone cutting my word and image lines at a random.
Well, they small bound and yawning. Well, smell of late Morville bound and yawning. The smell of late Morville bound and yawning. Eon, smell of silver smoke of dreams. The smoke of Burroughs, Bill M13. In the late smoke in the late smoke sun. Now will you is no word assure you. Eon, silver smoke of dreams in the late smoke in the late summer will summer will right on them light exactly how to know them. Exactly how to know them. Exactly how to know them.
Lock them out and block the door, bar them out forevermore. Knock them out. Lock is mine and door is mine. 3 times 3 to make up 9. Change the lock and change the door. Near them out forevermore. Curse, go back. Curse, go back. Back with double pain and lack. Curse, go back. Curse, go back. Back with double fear and black. Silver arrow through the night. Silver arrow, take thy flight. Silver arrows he can find, cursing heart and cursing mind.
Apocalypse. Mariners sailing close to the shores of Tuscany heard a voice cry out from the hills, the trees, and the sky. The great god Pan is dead. Pan, god of panic. The sudden awareness that everything is alive and significant. The date was December 25, 1 AD. But Pan lives on in the realm of imagination, in writing and painting and music. Look at Van Gogh's sunflowers writhing with pretentious life. Listen to the pipes of Pan in Tijuca. Now Pan is neutralized, framed in museums, entombed in books, relegated to folklore. But art is spilling out of its frames into subway graffiti. Will it stop there? Consider an apocalyptic statement. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. Hassan I, Sabbah, the old man of the mountain. Not to be interpreted as an invitation to all manner of unrestrained and destructive behavior. That would be a minor episode, which would run its course. Everything is permitted because nothing is true. It is all make-believe, illusion, dream, art. When art leaves the frame and the written word leaves the page, not merely the physical frame and page, but the frames and pages of assigned categories, a basic disruption of reality itself occurs. The literal realization of art. Success will write apocalypse across the sky. The artist aims for a miracle. The painter wills his pictures to move off the canvas with a separate life. Movement outside of the picture, and one rent in the fabric is all it takes for pandemonium to sluice through. Last act, the end. This is where we all came in. The final apocalypse is when every man sees what he sees, feels what he feels, hears what he hears. The creatures of all your dreams and nightmares are right here, right now, solid as they ever were or ever will be. Electric vitality of careening subways, faster, 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 stations flash by in a blur. Pan, god of panic, whips screaming crowds as millions of faces look up at the torn sky.